So behind you guys is the New Haven Green, which is the center of the city of New Haven. So New Haven was founded in 1638, and it was actually America's first planned city. So it was the first city where they actually planned out based around 9 city blocks, the center being the Green, and if you can imagine, 8 blocks around that. So New Haven Green is actually an historical landmark of the US government because it was that important, America's first planned city. New Haven's also the place of America's first hamburger, and my personal favorite, America's first Frisbee, was invented in New Haven.
So you look very happy while you're listening. Jeez, that's so interesting. Wow, really?
I love phones.
So, the city government...
Come on.
It's okay.
Guys, look happy.
The city government will plan lots of fun events like music concerts, arts festivals, stuff like that on the Green. And it is the center of city life. The other kind of cool fun fact is that we have 2 churches on the Green, both of which were very active on the Underground Railroad in the 19th century in helping escaped slaves get to Canada. So we're currently standing on Old Campus. This is the historical center of Yale, and it's the oldest part of the campus. It's also where you would most likely live as freshmen should you guys attend Yale University. So Yale was founded in 1701. However, it was not founded as Yale, and it was not founded in New Haven. It was actually founded as the collegiate school in Killingworth, Connecticut. So we bounced around for a few years. We received our first major donation in 1708 from a man named Jeremiah Dummer, who gave us a large collection of books. And then in 1714, we actually moved to New Haven because of a gift of land and some tax exemptions from the city. Also about that time, we received our second major donation from a man named Elihu Yale. He gave us 500 pounds, 400 books, and a portrait of King George. And so for his generosity, we decided to rename the collegiate school Yale University in 1716. But unfortunately, he died on a voyage to Asia before learning this news, and he actually tried to give us 500 more pounds in his will, but he left it to the now non-existent collegiate school, so he never received Mr. Yale's second donation. We at Yale like to say it's a good thing we're named after our second major donor, because our students are called Yaleys. Had we been named after Mr. Jeremiah Dummer, we would be the Dummer School, and our students would be called Dummies. Do you guys have any questions about Old Campus, founding of Yale?
I'm just curious. So, where exactly do you live from this area?
So a lot of these buildings you'll see are dorms. Most of them are dorms around the outside. As a freshman, I lived in that dorm right down in the corner, Landman Wright Hall. However, which dorm you live in depends on which residential college you're in, which I'll talk a little bit about later. Pretty famous, but he graduated from Yale in 1773 at the age of 18. And he, of course, was a spy for the Continental Army during the Revolutionary War. He was America's first spy, and so for that, Yale decided to honor him with a statue. He wasn't a very good spy, and the British actually knew that he was a spy and would feed him some misinformation that he would dutifully pass along to the Continental Army leadership, but we still honor him nonetheless. So if you'll notice, his feet are tied together, his hands are tied behind his back. This is because in 1776, the British Army decided that he had outlived his usefulness and decided to have him executed for spying. So Mr. Hale is famous for saying, right before he was hanged, "I only regret that I have but one life to lose for my country," which is this quote we have inscribed on the bottom of the statue. Mr. Hale also, when he died, had on him a Bible and his Yale diploma, which is the source of our unofficial motto here at Yale, which is "For God, for country, and for Yale." So they make lots of banners. People often hang up banners saying "For God, for country, and for Yale" in their dorm rooms. It's just kind of a student thing here. So Yale decided to have the statue made in 1904, and then when the CIA was founded, they actually wanted to get their hands on the statue to honor America's first spy, that means Central Intelligence Agency. So they tried to buy the statue from Yale. Of course, we would not sell it to them. So they tried for a while, until finally, in the middle of the night, legend has it that the CIA snuck into Old Campus and made a copy, or made a mold of the statue. And should you ever visit CIA headquarters, you can actually find a copy of this statue standing in their headquarters. What the CIA doesn't know is that it's not actually a statue of Nathan Hale. So in 1904, when we had the statue commissioned, no one knew what Nathan Hale looked like, and we didn't have any representations of him anywhere. So what Yale decided to do is they took the whole class of 1904, put them in a line, and they chose the student who they thought looked the most patriotic and used him as a model for the Nathan Hale statue. So joke's on the CIA, they stole the wrong statue and don't even know. Do you guys have any questions about Mr. Hale? If you're interested in, behind me is Connecticut Hall, which is our oldest building here on campus. It was built in 1750, and it was actually where Nathan Hale lived during his time as a student. You can see on this plaque. He was the president of Yale from 1846 until 1871, making him our longest serving president. So Mr. Woolsey's notable for a few things. First of all, I mentioned that Old Campus is freshman housing. One thing that's interesting about Old Campus is that all of the entrances to the dorms are actually on the inside. They don't have any entrances to the outside of Old Campus. So Mr. Woolsey did this on purpose so that students here at Yale, when they're on their way to class, would actually have to pass by each other, say hi in the mornings, as opposed to just sneaking out the back, going to class, going back to their rooms without ever seeing anyone. So I think this creates a great sense of community among the freshmen, and we're really grateful to Mr. Woolsey for doing this. He also was the only president of a northern university who didn't send the southern students home during the Civil War because he valued learning over fighting in the war. Yeah.
Okay, go.
Well, I'll mention why first. Yeah.
Okay.
So Mr. Woolsey also has a very lucky left foot. This is because he was a big lover of Yale crew and would make every meet that he could, both during his tenure and after he retired. And supposedly, whenever he went to a Yale crew meet, at the beginning of the meet, he would go down and give the Yale boats a little push with his left foot. And supposedly, whenever he made the race, Yale would win. Whenever he did not go to the race, Yale would lose. So from this, we have concluded that he must have had a very lucky left foot. So whenever Yale students need a little bit of luck before a big exam, before a big job interview, just give Mr. Woolsey's foot a little rub, try to get some of that luck. So if any of you guys feel like you want some of Mr. Woolsey's luck, I recommend you try rubbing his
So everyone left.
One thing I'd like to point out is here behind you guys, we have Harkness Tower. It's kind of hard to see through the trees, but from over here is a pretty nice view. I just like to point it out because it's kind of an iconic piece of Yale architecture. People just really emblematic of the Gothic style of really all of our buildings. But the main thing of interest here is the fact that this is Brantford College. So undergraduate life here at Yale, as a student, you are divided into one of 12 different residential colleges, and this is really a big part of your identity as a Yale student. So when you meet new people, when you're introducing yourself, kind of the four things you'll say are your name, your year, your major, and your residential college. So it's really kind of just an integral part of our identity as Yale students. So residential colleges are centered around housing, but they're a lot more than just kind of dorms. So you live with people in your residential college all 4 years. Most of your friends will be in your residential college. You'll do things with everyone in your residential college. You'll compete with your residential college in sports against the other residential colleges. So it really is the center of student life here at Yale. I'm in Pearson College, widely considered the best college. Brantford College is often 5 or 6 on the list. When you guys come, I believe we will have, there are two more colleges under construction that I believe will be finished when you guys, should you guys decide to come here. So then there'll be 14, right now there are 12. But each college has its own dining hall, its own library, its own gym, its own laundry room, its own common room. Basically everything you need to survive, you can find in your residential college. So theoretically, if you're not interested in going to class, you could go an entire year without ever leaving your residential college. I don't recommend doing that, but it is possible. Additionally, each college has a dean and head of college. So the dean is kind of like the bad cop. It's their job to ensure that you're following all the rules of Yale. It's also their job to make sure that you're going to graduate on time. So every semester, you'll have to submit your class schedule to your dean, who will review it, make sure you're going to fill all your requirements, graduate on time. Then they'll sign off on your schedule and let you take your classes. the head of college's job, they're kind of like the good cop. They're supposed to make sure that everyone's having a great time as a residential college. So my favorite example, the head of Pearson College will every week have Friday night game night, where every Friday Pearson students can go to his house and play board games with him and his wife. We all have a great time. Some other things is every year we'll have Pearson Day, where they'll rent out a bouncy house, some slip and slides, put them all in Pearson courtyard. We'll have a barbecue and everyone just has grand old time as members of Pearson College. Another thing that each head of college will organize are called college teas, where they'll invite prominent members kind of various fields to come and give talks to Yale students, where they'll talk a little bit about their work, kind of life outside Yale. And as a student in college, you can actually work with your head of college. If there's someone you really want to hear talk, you can work with them and have them come and give a college tea. So the most famous one we had last year, I believe, was Paul Simon. Came and gave a college tea, which was pretty hype. Everyone got really excited about that. But those are a really great resource here at Yale. So do you guys have any questions about the residential college system? Yeah.
Like particular college?
Yeah, so when you decide to come to Yale, you will be randomly assigned to one of the residential colleges. The only exception is if you had a parent or sibling attend, then you can choose to be in the college that they were in or are in. Yes. Yeah, it's just for fun. Anyone else? Yeah, yeah. Residential colleges are not at all related to classes. Each residential college, it's kind of like if you took all of Yale and squish it into 1/12 the size. That's what a residential college is. So we typically have the same diversity of majors, the same diversity of ethnicities, geographic distribution, all that stuff will be distributed evenly throughout the colleges. And then also, classes are completely independent of what residential college you're in.
Can you visit other colleges?
Yeah, so as a Yale student, you'll have access to the courtyards of every residential college. You will not have swipe access to the buildings. The only exception is you can, during mealtime, you can get into any residential college's dining hall to eat. Other than that, you don't have access to the buildings. However, you will likely have friends in every college who can come let you into their buildings. And also, if you just wait outside a door, eventually someone will walk by from that college and they'll let you in.
So to talk about this building behind me, which hopefully we can go in soon. So this is Sterling Memorial Library. It's probably our main library. It's certainly our largest. It houses 4 million of our 12 million books. But it does not look like a typical library. It looks a lot like a church. So the reason for that is the architect believed every good architect had to design a cathedral before retirement. So he drew up the plans for a cathedral and gave it to Yale. But we as a school did not need a cathedral. We weren't a religious school and we didn't ask for it. So we kind of apologized to him and said, you know, we can't really build this for you. So what he did, we actually needed a library at the time and we commissioned him for that. So he took his cathedral plans and slightly modified them and then crossed out the word cathedral and wrote right next to it library and gave us the plans back. So he actually did get his way very cleverly. So you'll see that there's a lot of religious themes that have been changed into themes of learning. So you'll see it looks like a church on the inside as well as the outside.
Down in kind of the altar area, you see this painting. The woman is holding a crystal ball and a book, which stands to symbolize light and truth, which of course our motto is Lux et Veritas, which means light and truth in Latin. Sterling also has another great resource where they have research assistants. So if you have a research paper that you need to write, so say you want to write about, like, I don't know, the spice trade in North Carolina in the 1800s. Then you can go up to the research assistants, tell them, hey, I have to write a paper about the spice trade in North Carolina in the 1800s. And then you can come back in 5 days or a week and they'll actually have found a stack of like 10 to 12 books on the topic that you can read to help you write your paper. So that is obviously an incredible resource, because if any of you tried to write a research paper, finding relevant materials is incredibly time consuming. So I just think that's a great thing that Yale offers to its students. Right here is our largest dining hall. It seats about 1,400 people, and it's where we have lots of big events like freshman dinner, where they throw a big fancy dinner for freshmen right before winter break, where freshman ball is, which is a big dance they throw for all the freshmen. Yale Final Cut is there, which is a cooking competition between Yale undergrads, or of course organized by Residential College. So lots of big events. Basically all the big events we throw in Schwartzman Center. Woolsey Hall is our largest performance space. It seats about 2,300 or so people. It's where like the Yale Symphony Orchestra will perform there, the New Haven Symphony Orchestra will perform there. It's where a professor will give the class speech, where the president will give the class speech to graduating seniors, incoming freshmen. And whenever famous people, performance artists visit, a lot of the time they'll speak or perform in Woolsey Hall. However, the most notable thing is behind you guys we have our Beinecke Rare Book and Manuscript Library. So does anyone want to tell me what the outside of Beinecke looks like to them? This is a fun game we play. Beinecke. Yeah.
It's like a waffle.
Connect four.
Connect four.
Like the ice thing you put like water in, so that it freezes. Ice cube. Ice cube.
Ice cube tray. I haven't heard that one yet. It's pretty good. Yeah. Another one we get a lot is looks like a beehive. People say that. So the Beinecke brothers made their money from H&S Green Stamps, which was a rewards program here being America, in the 60s and 70s, where you get a stamp book. You'd go into your local convenience store, buy something, get a stamp in your stamp book. When you filled up a page or a book, I'm not sure the details, but you could trade it in for some sort of reward. So the Beinecke brothers wanted to model the outside of Beinecke after H&S Green Stamps, and so they wanted to make the outside look like a page in one of their stamp books. But as you guys can see, it looks a lot more like a waffle or a beehive or an ice cube tray than it does a stamp book. So they actually wanted to make it out of green marble, but when they tried to do this, they discovered that there was not enough green marble in the entire world to construct Beinecke Library, so they had to settle for normal white marble. Does anyone want to guess how thick the marble slabs are on the outside of Beinecke? Anyone else?
Very thin and sunlight goes from here.
Yeah, so the marble slabs are actually about 1.5 inches thick. About 1.5 inches, and they're actually translucent. So if you're inside, if it's there's sunlight outside, it actually will see through the marble slabs and illuminate the inside of Beinecke. So I think it's really cool because most rare book libraries can't have natural lighting because sunlight, of course, will damage the manuscripts. But Beinecke gets by this by having the light diffused by the marble slabs, so there's no direct sunlight on the books, but they still can have natural lighting in the library. So I think that's really cool. It's really cool to see, but unfortunately, as you guys can tell, it's under construction right now. Has been for a while, probably will be for a while. But if you guys are back here in like 1.5 years, 2 years maybe, it'll probably be open to the public. I definitely recommend going and checking it out. We have lots of cool things. My personal favorite, or we have a Gutenberg Bible in there. And then we also have some original Audubon prints that I really like. And then of course, there's lots of other famous rare books and manuscripts. Some of them are detailed on the outside of the construction area, more than I can tell you about. Does anyone have any questions about Beinecke Commons? Stop on the tour. First, I'd like to point out a couple things. These are two newest residential colleges. To my right is Esmond Styles College, to my left is Morse College. You guys can probably tell they look a little bit newer than the rest of the residential colleges. Of course, they, in their original design plans, had ivy. Oh, lost people. All right, that's fine. In the original design plans, they had ivy covering all the walls, and they actually installed the ivy, but discovered upon doing that the ivy was actually secreting a compound that was eroding the walls. So as soon as they installed all the ivy, they had to tear it all down, which is why these colleges look kind of so barren. Another thing is through the this pathway, you can see the top of Payne Whitney, which is our school's main gymnasium, which I think looks really nice. Down on the right, we have the Yale bookstore. So if you guys want to buy anything after, I'm supposed to tell you that if you say you're on a tour, you get 50% off at checkout. 15. 1-5. Yeah. 15% off. Yeah. But I like to end the tour the way we started the tour, which is why I chose Yale. So I'll briefly mention why I decided to come to Yale and also why I would choose Yale again. So I came to Yale primarily for two reasons. First was the residential college system. So in high school, I really didn't like talking to strange people, which is ironic given the fact that I'm a tour guide now. But I was really worried about going to a big university, not really making friends with anyone. But Yale's residential college system does a really good job of giving you a smaller group of people that you kind of have to be friends with and know. So I really like that about Yale because it kind of gives you the sense of a smaller school within the scope of a larger school. And as someone who wasn't sure if I wanted a small school or a large school, that was really appealing to me. And the second thing was shopping period. So people on Tavi's tour, you probably talked about it. I like to save it for the end though, so I have to hear it again if he did. At Yale, when you're choosing classes, you actually don't have to choose your classes before the semester starts. So the first 2 weeks of every semester are what are called shopping period. And during those weeks, you can go to whatever class you want and just sit in and see if the subject material or the professor interests you. So when I came into Yale, I really had no idea what I wanted to study, and I wanted to explore lots of things. So the idea of not having to choose a class until I actually got to sit in and listen to the subject material was really appealing to me. And actually, it's part of the reason that I'm a philosophy major is because during shopping period my freshman year, I just randomly decided to go sit in on an intro ethics class. And I just really loved the enthusiasm of the professor, the subject material he was talking about. So I decided to take the class, and now I'm a philosophy major. So I really like, yeah.
Wait, so you get to choose your subject and professor?
So so you'll get to go to any class. You can sit in on any class you want during the first 2 weeks. You don't have to, and you don't have to choose which one you actually take until after the 2 weeks are over. So say I'm interested in 3 different classes, I can only take one because they're all at the same time. I can go to each one during shopping period, see which one I like the most, and then decide to take that one at the end of the period.
But the professor, you get to choose that professor?
Well, each professor will teach specific classes. So you can choose classes based on professors, but you don't get to choose which professors teach which classes or anything like that. And so then, my favorite part about being at Yale, and I would certainly choose to go to Yale again, is definitely the people that you meet every day. So as a student here at Yale, if you can just bump into random people on your way to class, and every single person you run into just has an incredible story and has something that they're really passionate and excited about. And so every conversation that I've had with kind of strangers here at Yale, I found just to be incredibly fulfilling and a great experience. So I recommend any of you guys, if you're just walking around campus, happen to bump into a current Yale student, try to talk to them, ask them what they care about, and I guarantee they'll give you a great story. So that by far has been my favorite part about Yale. And I certainly hope that if any of you guys decide to come to Yale, that you guys have the same experience. So that's the end of our tour. If you guys have any questions, feel free to ask me. But other than that, thank you for coming, and welcome to Yale.
Terry DeGrati. I am the coordinator of the Cushing Center, and I will be giving you a tour today of the facility, and we'll look a little bit around the medical school so you get a sense of what the history of the medical school is. Yes, what's coming. Yes.
And Terry, I just want to say thank you so much for doing this year after year after year. Your kindness and your amazingness. And I got you the expanded Shutterfly album.
It's beautiful.
So thank you so much of our 2014
Thank you so much.
trip.
I will share this with
our brochure, because now Yale is complete. The brochure
This is
from Color
great.
Pepper
This
here.
is fantastic.
Our little college
it's great.
schedule.
That's lovely. Thank you.
And I just want, and I just want you to remember that every child here wants to go to Yale Medical School.
Good, you should. First come to undergraduate and then come to medical school and then become research scientists. And it goes on and on. So.
You loved it. Isn't it beautiful?
Really?
Better than expected. See that?
And you guys are heading north too, to the other school we try not to talk about too much, but it's all right. It's all right. Even Harvey Cushing couldn't go to one, so he went to Yale and then he went to Harvard. But I'll tell you more about that when we get inside.
Cushing School of Medicine
so
at
this
Yale,
is no. So we are going. This is Yale School of Medicine, and then within that is the Cushing Whitney Medical Library. And within that library is the Cushing Center. But come on inside with me and I'll tell you a little bit about why we have all those layers of information, or the history there. So welcome to the School of Medicine. We are standing in the rotunda area of the medical school library. This library was built 75 years ago. We're actually celebrating our 75th anniversary this year. We are standing right now in the circular part of this Y-shaped plan. This is the plan for the library when it was built 75 years ago. It's dedicated to Dr. Harvey Cushing, whose brain collection we'll be seeing downstairs. But the reason, one of the reasons this place is dedicated to him is because of his love of books. He collected many, many beautiful medical books in his lifetime. And the reason why we at Yale ended up getting this gorgeous collection is because after a very amazing career as considered the sort of founder of neurosurgery, he retired and came back to New Haven. And I say back because he started here as an undergraduate. He was originally from Cleveland, Ohio, but he came to Yale for undergraduate school. Then he went to Harvard for medical school. He began his surgical career at Hopkins in Baltimore and was there for about 15 years, I guess till 1912, 1913. And then he moved back up to Boston. And that's where he was for the last 20 years of his clinical life. He was at the, anybody been to Boston? Or you're headed that way, right? So he was at the head of the Brigham Hospital between about 1913 and 1933. But when he retired, he came back to New Haven. And with it, he brought the brain collection we'll hear more about, but he also, as a rare book collector, brought his beautiful collection. And he was at the age where he was thinking about his legacy and what would happen to his books, and he ended up thinking about selling them, and then he thought, no, maybe I'll keep them together, and convinced two of his friends who were physicians and book collectors to put all their books together, the three of them, and offer them to Yale as long as they would build him a library. And Yale accepted that offer. And so the plans were drawn up, and in the 1939, it was finally agreed to that Yale would pay for this beautiful library. One wing would be dedicated to historical, the other would be more of a functional library, and the books would stay here for future generations. Cushing knew it was going to be completed. Unfortunately, he died before he was able to walk into the space. It was completed in 1941, and that's why we're looking at the 75th anniversary. And then it was dedicated to Cushing by his class of 1891, his sort of colleagues. And all of the shields that are sort of dotted along this circular space have to do with honorariums that he received for his work and his research and his additions to medical knowledge. Yeah, it's a nice inscription. So, and I understand that there are there's a certain amount of magic powers that reside within this circular area here. And, so you're welcome if any of you are considering coming to Yale and maybe medical school if you're that far advanced. We're looking at the front of the library is a portrait of Andreas Vesalius, who was a Belgian physician and published this beautiful book of illustrations based on his experience doing dissection and teaching anatomy at the University of Padua in the 1540s. And so he was around, he was living during the height of the Renaissance, and so he was a man of science and medicine and art. And then he worked with a number of artists and wood carvers to create this beautiful publication of illustrations of the human body. And at that point, it was now legal to explore the human body. It wasn't, you didn't have to be in the shadows of illegal activity. And so Vesalius really revolutionized people's understanding of the human anatomy and cadaver, and that informed people of medicine how to operate and how to take care of people. And Cushing had very much admired Vesalius's work and collected several volumes of his publications, which is among the holdings of the rare books here. That's the shield of the Vesalius family. That's 3 white weasels. Vesalius is Vesalius, I think is the Dutch translation. It means weasel, so that's why it's come about that way. Let's see what else is. Anybody have any questions about this room? Or this is probably, even though the library has certainly been through various renovations along the way, this room is probably the most authentic, even from 1941.
So those books are still...
The rare books, yes, the rare books are still part of this library, but they're not on the shelf because we can't have like a first edition Copernicus or Isaac Newton on the shelf. It's just too, but they're still within the holdings, and people can come and ask to have them taken out, and people can, you can look at them in the reading rooms. Yes.
So like those books on the with the cages, can you take those
yes,
out?
everything that's on the shelf is what they call the circulating collection. So these can be taken out. It's just the more rare books have to be taken care of differently too. Like, yeah, but they're not rare. They're not the more delicate rare books. These are what the circulating collection.
What is that shield up there?
That is a version of the caduceus, which is sort of a symbol of medicine. And I understand that hand, I just found out, I know it's maybe myself. That hand is supposedly the hand of John Fulton, who was, there were 3 physicians who donated their books at the very beginning. John Fulton, Arnold Klebs, and Harvey Cushing. They were friends, physicians, and bibliophiles. And it was their 3 collection that was the core collection for this original. A little bit about this photo. This is one of about 10,000 photographs we have. So Harvey Cushing used photography in a way that we might use CAT scans or MRIs now to document patients and their conditions. He didn't have that technology. It was pretty basic back then. He had X-ray, which was relatively new, and there was, straight documentary photography. So he had his patients photographed, often serially, so pre-surgery, post-surgery. God forbid that they were to die, he would also photograph the brain, he would do the histology slides. And by the end of about 30 years of doing the work that he was doing, we ended up with somewhere between 10 and 15,000 images. Most of them on glass plate, 5x7 glass plate slides, and some on film. This is actually a picture of Cushing with one of his patients. And he's standing next to a young man who was diagnosed with gigantism, which was a condition caused by a tumor of the pituitary gland, which would cause an overexcretion of growth hormones. So this young man was very, very tall for his age at that point in time in the 20s. Cushing was about 5'9". And what I love about this photo is that he's in it, that Cushing's in it. It's a rarity for us to have come upon images with him in it. So we're in the process of digitizing these 10 to 15,000 images. So it's a slow process, but he arrived in this photo and about 3 other ones we have pictures of him. As we go down, you're going to pass a skeleton. It's not the skeleton of this young man, but it is somebody who had another condition caused by a pituitary tumor. It's called acromegaly. Anybody ever heard of Andre the Giant? Suppose Andre the Giant is a wrestler. So he had the same condition. So you'll see the skeleton, and you'll notice large rib cage, jaw, and it's caused also by a tumor of the pituitary. So, as I mentioned earlier, the specimens were collected over about a 30-year period of time. And when Cushing started to do this kind of operation, it was not a good time to have to undergo brain surgery back in about the turn of the century. Your chances of bleeding to death was about 90%. It was a kind of severe time. Cushing had better success than most people, and part of it was that he decided, rather than just to be a general surgeon, which was very common, is that he wanted to specialize and try to understand the problems and tumors of the brain. So with getting as many opportunities to do this work, he became better and better at it. But at the same time, it was a very dangerous operation. People died. And so the next thing he could gain, unfortunately, from people's loss was to be able to save the brains and then use these brains as a way to teach people moving forward. So as people died, often autopsies were common in hospitals. And so with Cushing being able to save the brain, he would keep it, he would cross-section it and present it in a way that these brains could then start to tell the story of certain types of disease. Between that and the photography that he took and the patient notes and the histology slides, each patient then became a good way to sort of share information and knowledge. And hopefully the next person who is being taken care of will have a better chance of surviving than the last person. And that was intention. And so for over 30 years he did that, and at the end of it we ended up with about 700 jars of brains. There's about 450 on display here, and thousands of photos. So this collection was gathered in Baltimore and Boston, but brought back to New Haven in the 30s when he retired here. And when they were brought back in the 30s, they were important. And so they were kept in a special room, and there was somebody, Dr. Louise Eisenhart, who had worked with Harvey Cushing for many years to help to share the collection with people who were interested in learning from it. But then she dies in the late 60s. The collection is a bunch of old jarred brains by that point. There's much better ways to see it. So they end up in a sub-basement of the medical school dorms, and that's when they become kind of part of a secret society or a sort of a lost collection. And that's when medical students became curious and started sneaking down to the brain room. And it took, well, from when they were left there in the late 70s till about mid-90s, that's when the brains had to be rediscovered. And it was that rediscovery in the mid-90s that showed us that the glass plates, the brains were still in the basement, and it was time to do something about it. But it took about 15 years from the rediscovery of the brains to building the center here. So this place just opened in 2010. Someone asked me, is it open? Yes, it's open to the public pretty much any day. So if you guys are ever passing through New Haven again with a friend, you can stop in. There's not always tours, but you're welcome to come in and visit the collection. Alongside with the brains, we have a few of the rare books. Just a few of them are on display here. So there's these little white buttons you can press, and underneath the rare books are discovery drawers. There's 22 discovery drawers. So let me, it's hard to open them with lots of people nearby. So we have these drawers full of things like histology slides, a whole mount, or let's see, what else does it have? This is, that's okay. So this is an example of how they used to prepare. This was a preparation of a fetal skeleton from like 100 years ago, and they were prepared in a way that they would be used for educational purposes to teach anatomy, early anatomy. So there's 22 drawers, and I'd like you guys to spend some time wandering through them if you get a chance. Over here, underneath these are locked. These are locked. The drawers are open, and that display is open. In this section, we have a few things that belong to Harvey Cushing when he was at Yale. He came here. He was the youngest of 10 children from Cleveland, Ohio. But he came here with a legacy, kind of. His father, his grandfather, and his great-father had all been physicians. So he became the fourth in his family to become a physician. He got through Yale, but he wasn't so motivated. He was a mediocre student, which turns out that he was dealing with dyslexia. while he was as an undergraduate. So he was dealing with some disability stuff, but that did not stop him to go on to Harvard and medical school, and that's when things really kicked in. He just fell in love with medicine and the brain, and everything got very intense at that point. There's a picture of him as a young Harvey, second from the left, sitting there with a bat between his legs. He was the captain of the baseball team. He was a shortstop and captain of the baseball team when he was here. And I guess some of those his game-winning balls have been bronzed. This is a photo of him doing a backflip. Any of you guys athletic or gymnasts around here? He did a great little backflip and somebody caught it way back then on film. Let me see. A little background, he was married. He had 5 children. There were 5 children in the family, 3 girls, 2 boys. The oldest son came to Yale, or the oldest boy came to Yale. In 1926, he graduated. He went out one night with some friends in one of those new kind of fancy cars, convertible. They hit a tree not far away from here, and all 4 of them were killed. So it was a very hard time in Cushing's life to be told, as he's about to enter operations that day, that his son had been killed. His youngest son came to Yale, but also dealt with dyslexia, so there was some kind of, it was a difficult place to struggle with that sort of stuff. All of his daughters, 3 daughters, were raised to be more socially connected. Education was not as much of a push. So they were certainly educated, they were very bright, they were very beautiful, and they all ended up marrying well-known men, often wealthy men. So there's a legacy in their lives in that way. There's some of their descendants who visited here about 10 years ago. And that baby, I like to point out, that little baby that's on the lap of that woman in the front row was here a few months ago as a 5th grader. So it was very sweet to have her return after. The display case over here is filled with photographs from that period of time, some of Cushing's drawings. Let's see if I can point out here. Let me open this up. So these are a few of Cushing's drawings. He always kept notebooks. He was really a collector of information, his own life, science, whatever. So these are sketches that he did when he traveled. And you can see that he's got a pretty good sense of space, and his drawing is quite beautiful. And then he also ended up becoming good friends with a young German medical illustrator named Max Breudel, who arrived at Hopkins around the same time that Cushing did as a student. And Max Breudel had been trained in traditional pen and ink and charcoal dust and medical illustration in Germany. And he was then the medical illustrator for the physicians at Hopkins. So Cushing and him, they became friends. Cushing took some lessons with him and proved to be quite a good student in terms of illustration. So this is one of his drawings. Lots of photographs, although just, compared to the thousands that I've looked at this point, these are just a few samples of some of the patients that he cared for. And as I said, it's not all brain surgery. Some of it is neurological or other growth-related issues. And then these displays give us an opportunity to show you some of the materials he worked with as a physician back then. This would almost be, think of a PowerPoint presentation where you put elements together to tell a story. This is what Cushing had to work with, the X-ray, visual field, and the photographs of the patients. This is a sketch that he did after coming out of surgery in order to explain how he approached certain conditions or how he reached certain tumors. He would do like a little drawing of that. And then here are some Persian examples of the rare books. We've got Persian texts. We have early medical illustrations. He collected science, math, as well as, medical illustrations. So we have some of the first engravings done after looking through microscopes to see bugs for the first time, that sort of, and other Persian and herbals, the wound man, Yeah. Don't worry, it wasn't all one person's bad day there. So, and then the other person I want to point out while we're here is this woman here, sitting here. In this picture, she's kind of blurry. Here, she's a little bit more clear. This is Dr. Louise Eisenhart, and Dr. Louise Eisenhart started to work with Cushing as a teenager when he got to the Brigham. She went on to go to medical school. She got her degree at Tufts University and became a neuropathologist. And she stayed and worked with Cushing until his death in 1939. And then she continued to take care of the brains and this collection and to host people until her death in the late 60s. But clearly she was an unusual woman to be among only men in these sort of house staff photos.
Who recognizes this picture? Anyone? Wow, you guys really pay attention. I have a photo of this in the Queller.
Oh, you do? Okay.
Does anyone recognize this? You guys, you really pay attention.
You will when you get back, that's for sure.
Hopefully they pay more attention.
So there she. This is the house staff from the one of Cushing's house staff from the Brigham Hospital. So.
Do you guys notice? Look, all men.
No.
One woman.
One woman.
Is that cool?
Yeah.
What year is this?
She was in. So this is 31. Oh wait, no, it was 28. This is 30. This is the Brigham from 30, and this is the 31. I think, is that right? Wait, you know what? I think that I just realized the date is wrong. I gotta check the date on that. So just realized that. So I don't know if you have any specific questions, or if you want to wander around and then ask me as you come upon questions. Do you have any questions? You look like you might have a question.
So these are all brains?
Most of the jars are whole brains. Some of them, the ones that have sort of like white gauzy stuff in, some of them have a single tumor or multiple tumors in them.
And do you ever take them out to use them for research?
Yes, we have actually about 15 of them have been pulled out recently for research.
So you took them out of the jars and all that?
Yes, they were taken out of jars. They took samples of the tumors again, and they sent these samples down to the National Institute of Health. They're looking at these tumors using brand new technology to see if they can find markers and look at the DNA of these tumors to see if it's the same as with people who have tumors today of the same type of disease.
And like, do they still do things like this to preserve brains now?
Yes, there are other brain collections. In fact, this is certainly not the biggest brain collection. There was much bigger brain collections in the universe. This is unique in that we have the photos of a number of the patients, and they're all in the original jars. So these are the original jars, and many of these are over 100 years old now. So
These are over 100 years old.
yeah.
And they're all sick, like they're all...
Yes, I think almost all, there was no like normal brains in here. He wasn't interested in a healthy brain. He was interested in
A sick brain.
the tumors and how they cause the disease.
And these are all different kinds of tumors.
Yes, they're all different types of tumors, and that was part of the work he was doing, was trying to figure out the difference between the different types of tumors, which one were more deadly, which one could be operated on, and how they might be able
And they
to...
were obviously labeled with names.
Yes, yeah.
When was the last brain preserved?
Cushing stopped operating in 1932. So I think those are some of the oldest ones that we have. It was a closed collection after he finished his clinical.
How back then they were so sophisticated about the type of embalming.
It was a standard. It's basically the same solution we're using today. It's like a formalin, a formaldehyde, certain solution of formaldehyde. So, yeah.
Are these technically all legal? Like when they preserve
Good
them?
idea. You mean were they
all legally
Donated
preserved?
his
Early
brains to
right.
science, is I guess the
Well, you know what? It's a good question. Sunday, do we have permission? Is that the question? Do we have permission to have?
At his time.
At
in
his
the back of
time,
the license.
yeah. At his time, it was a different world. It was like a really different way that you got permission. We know that Cushing had an unusual way of having his patients pay for their fees. He would find out how much people would have, and if you had a lot of money, he might charge you more money, and if you had no money, he would take care of you for free, or he would forgive the debt if someone died, or sometimes I think he would offer money to the family and ask for the brain. It was sort of like a lot of different ways around it. Sometimes people didn't have enough money to bury their loved one, and he might offer money in that way. So it's a different time. It wasn't the same kind of consent forms that we have
Who
today.
wants to donate his or her brains to science?
You know, people are donating their brains to science all the time. Oh my God, it's like critical. I mean, we know there's collections all over. People donate their bodies. They donate their
How many brains
brains.
do you think are here right now?
Well, we know that there's about 700 jars that survived all the transportation, and I'd say maybe 85% of them are whole brain. So maybe 500, at least 500 are whole brain, sliced, that is. So.
Do you have any that are totally intact or not?
No, you know, none are there's one, if you want to just see how pretty the outside of the brain looks before you start slicing it up, there's a jar at the top of the ramp if you want to take a look at that. But it has some slices at the bottom of it. So. Anybody else?
It's super cool.
So I'd love you guys to wander around and open the drawers and look through here if you want. You're welcome to take postcards and the brochures that are around the center. And if you have a question, please come and ask me about it.
I just want to stress, your education, everyone listen to me, your education will open doors. And that's why you're pursuing your education, and that's why you're going for it. Wherever that path takes you, it will open the doors. So whatever path you're in, the social network that you make, the friends you make, and ultimately the family who, they're your friends, but they're your family, and you almost don't even see a difference at some point, because I will tell you right now that those relationships, the social relationships that you make, they will just last so many years beyond you going to Yale for 4 years. They will last so many years beyond you and you studying. And I'm telling you from my first-hand experience, the bestest friends I made in college, in law school, as a professional running a business, I made those friends in my study groups. I made those friends in my academic environment, and those relationships stay. So you will open doors to success. And I thank you, Terry, for this trip. I want to thank all of the kids for a beautiful summer Friday being here. We're heading back to New York City now, so let's go back. I'd love to say thank you. Everyone, let's give her a big round of applause, okay? Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you.